Welcome, my name is Jamie and today I'm going to be making orange and patchouli scented goat kefir milk soap. This is a foodie soap inspired by nature, so I'm only going to be using natural ingredients with additives like baby carrots and Greek yogurt. For this batch of soap, I'll be replacing all of the water with creamy goat milk kefir. Keep in mind that there will be no probiotic benefits left in the soap after it's all done, because after all, probiotics are living creatures and the soap making process isn't really that nice to them. Ready? Let's get started. For the lye solution, 100% of the liquid will be my home-fermented goat milk kefir. The first step after fermenting the milk is to remove the kefir grains by straining them through a mesh strainer. What's left is a thick, creamy, pure goat milk kefir that doesn't have any additives or artificial thickening agents like what you would find with commercially distributed kefir. This isn't the first time I've used goat kefir to make soap. At one point, I had a lot of extra kefir on hand from fermenting so much of it, and I didn't want it to go to waste, so I ended up freezing it and thought I'd try it in soap making. Here's what the milk kefir grains look like. I'm going to put them into a clean canning jar with fresh goat milk, and then I'm going to use them to ferment my next batch of goat kefir. I just finished pouring the kefir into a silicone muffin pan and popped it in the freezer. Now I'm labeling my storage bag with the date and the contents so I can properly rotate it and know when I need to use it by. Now that the kefir is frozen, it can be removed from the mold and placed in my freezer until ready to soap with. I couldn't find my ice cube trays to freeze the kefir, which is what I usually do, so I used this silicone mold instead. That was really a good thing because it's so much easier and cleaner to use a silicone mold for this. When I was using an ice cube tray, I was having a hard time getting the milk kefir out of the tray, and it would chip and fragment and fall all over my countertop, and I would be banging it upside down, and then the ice cubes would be shooting all over the countertop and falling on the floor. It was really a mess. And so yes, definitely if you do this, use a silicone mold. It really helps. The first oil I'm adding to my bowl is some tallow that I rendered. The reason I chose tallow instead of palm oil is they are similar and have similar properties when making soap, and tallow gives you a wider bar than palm oil. My design for this batch requires a portion of the soap to be white, and I'm using that to my advantage instead of using white mica or titanium dioxide. Here's some tallow left over from a previous bucket I had. See how hard and flaky the tallow is? Part of that reason is because tallow is a hard oil, another is because I store mine in the refrigerator so it keeps longer. Next, I'm weighing out my coconut oil. Next is a little bit of castor oil. Now I'm adding shea butter. The last thing I'm adding to my bowl of oils is my olive oil. Now that I have my oils measured and set aside, I'm going to strain some of the liquid out of my baby food. Since I'm using baby food, I've got to use a baby spoon, and since I'm a rabbit person, why not have a rabbit on the spoon? What I've got here is just a small jar of organic baby carrots. After placing the carrot puree into the filter, I'm going to leave it overnight in the fridge to drain because it's really slow. This is also how you can make kefir cheese from your kefir milk. As you can see here, some of the juice has already dripped down to the bottom. To keep everything as natural as possible, I'm going to use an essential oil blend. The first essential oil I'm using is orange tenfold, and that's going to add orange color, and more importantly, that's going to slow down trace. Next is patchouli, and it will be the base scent to anchor the fragrance. Last is a bit of grapefruit. Grapefruit is going to help round out the citrus smell and brighten it up. I'm going to be using Greek yogurt as one of the food additives, and this Greek yogurt is a 5% milk fat. I'm going to be adding some of the baby carrot pulp to one of my colors, and this is a color that tends to be slower to trace and be on the softer side because of what I'm adding. And I didn't want the extra liquid in there. I didn't want it thickening up faster than the other colors, and the end product, I didn't want to have squishy spots in it. For the other colors, I'm using clays mixed right into the carrot puree. So for those, I'm going to have a small amount of pulp, and then I'm going to add a larger amount of the juice that I strained. The clays tend to absorb liquid quite a bit more, and the higher water content will make them easier to work with. For the first color, I have Brazilian yellow clay. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of the yellow clay to my carrot puree. Next, I've got my Brazilian red clay. Like with the yellow clay, I'm again adding 1 teaspoon. For the last one, I'm going to do half and half. So I'm going to take half a teaspoon of my yellow Brazilian clay and half a teaspoon of my red Brazilian clay and mix those together. For the black, I'm going to be mixing 1 teaspoon of activated charcoal into 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Next, I'm going to measure out my sodium hydroxide. Now it's time to measure out my frozen goat milk kefir. Now if I can just get this cut so I can measure it exactly without cutting myself or sending the kefir flying on the floor. Now I'm cutting up the kefir into smaller pieces to make it a little bit easier to mix in the lye. It seems like whacking it with a knife works the best. Before mixing my lye into my frozen goat milk kefir, what I'm going to do is make an ice bath to sit it in, because what I don't want is I don't want it to turn orange or a dark color. And if I can keep it under 85 degrees, it'll keep it a nice creamy light color. So another thing that I'm going to do to keep my kefir from getting too warm is I'm going to add my lye just a little bit at a time. This process requires a bit of patience. It takes a while to get your lye fully mixed into your frozen kefir. One of the things you have to watch for if you're using different liquids other than water to mix your lye into, especially something that is not transparent, is you want to really make sure you mix well, because you can't see your lye crystals and whether or not they are fully dissolved.
2,000 years later.
Now that the temperature is low enough, I'm going to add the rest of my lye. It looks like I got my lye solution just a little bit cooler than what I had hoped for, so next I'm going to put it in a warm water bath. Here's my warm water bath. I just used warm tap water, and what I'm going to do is heat my lye solution up to about 75 degrees. Milk soaps are usually a little bit more difficult to unmold, so to combat that, I'm going to add some sodium lactate to my lye solution. I'm putting in 1.5 teaspoons, and another benefit I'm hoping to get is to have that help slow down my trace just a little bit to give me a little bit extra time to work. In goes the lye solution to mix with the oils. I'm going to mix just until emulsion, and then I'm going to divide it into separate cups to color. Normally I don't weigh out my batter when I split it off to color it, but for this project I want 5 equal portions, and using my scale will get me as close as possible. I'm going to equally add my essential oil to 4 of the 5 colors, and the reason I'm not coloring the 5th pot is because that is going to be my white and I don't want the essential oils discoloring that. Now it's time to mix in those colors. I'm now adding the Greek yogurt to the soap that doesn't have any essential oil in it, and this is going to be my white. I can definitely tell a difference that having the essential oil in versus out makes. The soap without the essential oil is actually thickening up a lot faster. Since my white is so much thicker, I'm going to pour that first. Here I've got my hanger tool, and I'm hoping to do a swirl that looks like an abstract monarch butterfly. Now is time to scrape out my containers, plop the rest of the soap on top, and pretend I know how to make it look good. For the top, I'm going to put on some of my home-dried orange slices and complement it with some star anise pods.
And no one can take it. Find your dreams come true.
All right, here's the much anticipated cut. Yuck. Need sugar. And maybe some ice cream? And tastes better. The best. That's good. I love my goat kefir. This is good stuff. This is my favorite. I could drink this by the gallon.